Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort.
And I'm Dalton Gentry.
And we're here for a review of possibly the best novel we have reviewed yet on this channel, would you say?
It's going to be up there.
Would you venture to wager?
It's going to be up there.
This is a review, part 4 of a 4-part series for As I Lay Dying. Parts 1, 2, and 3 were the read-along. This is the review, and we will stuff any other videos that we have for this in the As I Lay Dying suite playlist, SUITE, on the channel, because I think I'm at least going to do one more that has to do with quotes. But we're going to jump right into things. So what happens here?
What happens here? Okay.
Addie Bundren dies.
Yes.
Do you have a recap that you would like to go on? Or?
Yeah, in a nutshell, Addie
Sure.
Bundren dies. The family is going to take Addie to Jefferson to bury her. Along the way, we get washed out in a river. We lose Addie. Addie begins to rot in her casket. We discover problems with every character. Every character's broken. Tragedy befalls them. One of the sons burns down the barn with the family inside of it. They get out. They make it to Jefferson. They bury Addie, and nothing is resolved.
It is for one character.
For one character.
Perhaps we'll get there.
Okay.
3 good things about As I Lay Dying. As I Lay Dying.
You want me to start?
Go ahead.
Okay. Good thing number 1. Each character in this is a strong, unique perspective in a completely original experience. This is the stream of conscious writing where everything is unique and everything different. We get the ideas of the characters on the page, and every single chapter is different. It's unique. That's a great thing. The writing in this will not only hurt you, it will haunt you, because damn is it good. And finally, there are so many layers to this. Every single read-through that you do, you are going to find more.
Yeah. My 3 things. Number 1, this is literature with a capital L.
Yes.
Number 2, there is no mastering this text. It has an infinite number of rereadings available to it. Number 3, if you can finish this, if you can get through this text with an idea of what's going on, somewhere there are trumpets sounding to your greatness.
Fair enough.
Number 3, or that is 3. 3 bad things.
3 bad things. This can be a difficult text to follow and a difficult text to understand at times. Absolutely true. And we talked about this one a little bit. Number 2, when writing action, Faulkner gets very muddled, and it is hard to follow what's going on. He is brilliant and a master at talking about characters, perspectives, insights, but once it gets to those action sequences in the river, the barn burning down, it gets a little wonky. And finally, stream of conscious writing can be off-putting. This is not traditional writing. This is not traditional literature, and this is a bit of a chore at times to make sure that you're following and you know what's going on.
I think our 3 bad things really mirror each other.
Okay.
1, this is an easy text to quit.
Okay.
2, as someone who reads for the literary, the symbolic aspect of things, someone who really enjoys that, this is cryptic.
Okay.
There's so much going on that it's hard to really pick and understand.
You know there's something there, but you
what
can't put your
wanna
finger
follow.
on it.
Where is it? Which thread are you going to unravel?
Okay.
And number 3, the Vardaman chapters sometimes make me want to skip pages.
Okay.
Do you have good quotes?
I do actually. I've been dog-earing pages like this entire time. Unfortunately, I did not write who is saying this, so give me just a second here. From Darl, page 163. It looks peaceful, like machinery does after you have watched it and listened to it for a long time, as though the clotting which you had dissolved into the myriad original motion, in seeing and hearing in themselves blind and deaf, fury in itself, quiet with stagnation.
Yeah, I think
Are we bouncing back and forth at this point?
No, you can go. I think that speaks to the legend of some of this text, though.
Okay.
How he wrote it, what he was doing when he wrote it.
It is interesting when you talk about how he wrote this text. There's one quote that I love, and if you want to take the reins for just a second.
This comes from Darl about Jewel. He has been to town this week. The back of his neck is trimmed close, with a white line between hair and sunburn, like a joint of white bone. He has not looked back. Just what that tells us about Darl and how observant he is, as well as the character of Jewel and what he does.
Also from Darl, page 11. Apparently Darl is our quote man.
Darl's our mouthpiece.
I didn't get a lot of quotes from Cash. Anyway, and at night it is better still. I used to lie on that pallet in the hall, waiting until I could hear them all asleep, so I could get back up and go back to the bucket. It would be black, the shelf black, the still surface of the water around orifice and nothingness, where before I stirred it awake with the dipper, I could see maybe a star or two in the bucket, and maybe in the dipper, a star or two before I drank.
Such a Dalton quote.
It is, isn't it wonderful? Do you have one more here?
I've got two more.
Okay.
Page 84 from Vardaman. My mother is a fish. That's a big one.
It is.
It's not a great one, but it's a big one. And perhaps my favorite quote from this text on this read-around. This is Peabody? Yeah, Peabody, speaking of ants. Of course he'd have to borrow a spade to bury his wife, unless he could borrow a hole in the ground. That's a good one. That is a good one.
Shirt idea. Because every time we talk, I'm going to get a picture of me and my mother. I'm going to put a fish head on my mother. That's happening. Anyway.
After quotes. So we're going to throw to Erika from Perks of Books for a little bit of one of the things. William Faulkner is one of the giants of the literary scene in American literature.
Yes.
What do you know about him?
Not a damn thing.
Yeah, a lot of people, right? It is hard. He's one of those authors that is semi-inaccessible, if for no other reason than the fact that he was so full of his own bullshit that he had to have a spade of his own to get rid of some of it.
Okay.
So we will throw to Erika for a little bit of biographical information on William Faulkner.
Hello, hi. Today I am going to be your William Faulkner expert, and I'm here to share with you some information on William Faulkner, so strap your seatbelts on. It's going to be a bumpy, crazy, exciting ride. Not really, but we can pretend it's going to be. Okay, William Faulkner was born in New Albany, Mississippi in September of 1897, not 19. Faulkner apparently was too short to join the United States Army at 5'5". So instead he tried to join the British Army unit in Toronto, but unfortunately he never saw service during World War I, being too short. Also, he published his first novel at the age of 28 in 1925. This novel, Soldier's Pay, originally titled Mayday, earned Faulkner $200 on publication and saw a 2,500 print run. Very interesting. I knew that. Did you know that? Moving on, 1927 saw Faulkner's first foray into this word here that I can't pronounce. Yes, there you go. Very interesting. This marked Faulkner truly coming into his own as he would continue to write in experimental style through the rest of his career, toying with stream of consciousness, diction, and point of view. And the efforts would win him a Nobel Prize for Literature in 1949. Whoa! He would even use some of the Nobel money to establish the PEN Faulkner Award for Fiction, and also donated some of the money towards establishing a scholarship to be awarded towards Black students studying to be teachers. William Faulkner died of a heart attack in July of 1962, thought to have been brought on by complications suffered by a fall from his horse. Whoa, that's crazy. I knew that. That's all the information on William Faulkner that I can spare to share with you for today. So yeah. Oh, but before I go, I just wanted to say some things that I noticed. Adrian, if you're watching this, I noticed some similarities between you and William Faulkner. I just kind of wanted to mention them real quick before I go. You were both born in September. That's really cool. Also, I noticed that you're both really short. You know, just something I picked up on. And he was born in 1897. That makes him really old. You're also really old and crusty. You're both old and crusty. Yeah, you know, those are just some things that I picked up on. Oh, wait, and Dalton, cut your hair, please. Okay, bye.
All right, Dalton. What would you like to talk about literary-wise here?
You just crossed somebody off your will there, did you?
Shut up.
All right.
Get into things.
All right. Okay. One of the things that I brought up last week was characters.
Yeah.
Every character in here is unique and different. Every character, besides Ants, loses something. And that is brilliant in this because that is how the characters develop, that is how they change. And they lose something that is unique to them that completely alters their world. Cash loses his physical well-being in his leg. Cash is a working man. That is what he has. Jewel,
Not getting on many roofs with
one leg?
With one short leg.
Jewel loses the horse, the one thing in his life that he's worked hard for, the one thing that he has that is his and his own.
Which Ants always held against him.
Yes. Darl loses himself. Darl loses his sanity. Darl basically loses everything about him. Vardaman loses his mother. That's the one thing that in his either adolescence or his capacity, he knows that is his. That is where he comes from. Dewey Dell loses her innocence. She loses her purity. Every single character here suffers, so much so that it completely alters their world. This is not just a character-defining moment, this is a world-altering moment. And it's all done in the premise of one novel. Like, in a good novel, you may have a drastic change for one, maybe two characters. But in this, every single person has their own unique story. This is not one story, this is 6 stories. And that's what makes this great. This stream of conscious writing is like, this alters and changes everything for them. And like, that's what excited me the most about finishing this here, is like putting those connections together. I'm like, damn, that's good work, Faulkner.
And it's on every level for every character.
Yes, yes.
Every character obviously loses something when Eddie Bundren dies, right?
True. They're all grieving together through the loss of their mother. They're all grieving separately through the loss of something near and dear to them. And like a simple thing like the horse for Jewel. It's a symbol of pride. It's a symbol of what he's worked to accomplish in this world. Not as drastic as you would think as losing a leg or losing your mental stability, but to Jewel, that is everything.
Yeah.
Jewel has lost his pride. So when you can take what is most important to a character and make them all on that same level of importance, it's brilliant.
Yep.
It is absolutely brilliant. I'm about it. It's damn good.
So this is one of those texts that I've always said is intimidating as a writer, and makes you say to yourself, "I'll never do this."
Okay.
But it's also very inspiring, in that A, something like this is possible, and B, it's so beautiful that you are filled with a want to attempt something beautiful.
Okay.
Right? Like you watch NFL football, or you watch the UFC, or you watch soccer, you're a soccer fan, you know you're never going to be that world-class athlete.
When you see something good, you know it's good.
But it kind of makes you want to go to the gym, doesn't it?
It does. And maybe that's a part of good writing, is you are right. When you're done with this, you really want to sit down and you want to start hammering away on something, because if you could create something a fraction as good as this, you made it.
10% as good at this.
You got it made.
I would like to touch a little bit on... So, Jewel. You mentioned Jewel.
Yes.
Jewel is the hothead. When Darl burns down the barn,
Okay.
Jewel's the one that runs in there and pushes out Addie Bundren.
Yes.
Flips Addie Bundren out of the damn thing. And is angry. So angry. Why is Jewel angry? Is it because he doesn't love Addie, as Ansa suggests?
It is interesting, because it is very clear that Jewel is probably the favorite of Addie Bundren. Absolutely. But you don't really see a good mother-son connection between those two until that very moment.
I don't know. I got it before then, because I grew up the angry young man.
Okay.
Right? And it was those things which make you angry that you tend to... So when someone questions a person's manhood, what is the response?
You gotta get
You
angry.
get angry. Right? Because it is... If your manhood is questioned, and you do not stand up for it. You're emasculated.
Okay.
You do not want to lose your masculinity.
Okay.
In this, Jewel has already lost his mother.
All right.
He's pissy the whole time, isn't he?
Okay.
We get from all the character interactions that Jewel is a hothead, is someone that gets angry very easily. But in this novel, he is always angry. We don't get to see cool-headed Jewel.
Cool-headed Jewel.
Like Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah, okay.
We don't get that character. We only get angry Jewel. I think it is because he has such a love for his mother. Who was his mother? Addie, right?
Okay.
The name means nobility.
All right. Interesting.
So, if Addie is nobility, is noble, does that make Jewel nobility? Well, who was Jewel's father? The man
The
of
Reverend,
God.
I can't remember his name off the top of my
The
head.
man of God.
Yes.
The man as nigh to God as anyone these people know, right? But she has Addie has a husband.
Yes.
Mother Mary had a husband too, didn't she?
This is true.
With whom did she have a child? The man that was God.
Okay.
We keep getting descriptions of Jewel as wooden, don't we? Darrell keeps describing him. When he's walking at the beginning, he looks wooden, like a tobacco store Indian. What is it?
Something like
a
that.
Cigar store Indian.
Yes.
Later in the novel, Darrell describes him as being wooden like something, as he's riding on the horse. That's in the middle of the novel. We get him described as wooden again at the very end when he's hanging off the back of the horse, at the back of the carriage. He's hanging back there like a wooden ornament or something. Wooden, a wooden man like one might see on a crucifix, perhaps. Now, Christ himself had a fit of anger, didn't he?
He did.
Where was that?
Where was that?
That was driving out the money handlers, wasn't it?
Okay. I want to interrupt you at this
Interrupt.
Okay, so this is the great thing about talking about literature, because you find these little moments when you start bouncing off other people. What happens in that barn when Jewel goes to save Addie Bundren? What happens to that casket?
It does not catch on fire?
When he goes to lift it. There is a moment when that casket stands erect.
Yeah.
And Jewel is the man holding the wooden crucifix of his mother.
His suffering.
In that moment. He's
Carrying his suffering.
just saying.
Okay. But really, if you want to talk about a Christ-like figure in this text, mightn't we talk about the person nearest to spirituality that we get? The brother who is stated to be touched by God.
Okay.
The brother who, the most religious, not the closest to God is the man of God, but the closest to religion, Cora, refers to him as touched by God. This is Darrell. Darrell exists like God exists outside of time and space, doesn't he? Darrell's in everyone's head.
Okay.
Darrell sees things in the future. Darrell sees things which have not happened. C.S. Lewis put forward the argument a long time ago, which was a little bit of a reformulation of an argument prior to him, but this is how he put it. With the things that Christ is reported to have said, Christ was either a liar, the Lord, or a lunatic.
Okay.
The liar, the Lord, or a lunatic. What happens to Darrell here?
Darrell ends up in an asylum.
Well, I'll be damned.
Must be a lunatic.
Or is he touched by God?
Could be.
Right?
There's a lot of religious symbolism when you get into this, especially with the river, the baptism by fire, basically, that Darrell has.
But if we could stick with Christ and Christ imagery, there is a brother here who makes an actual blood sacrifice,
Okay.
isn't there?
There is.
Who is that?
Is that Cash?
That is Cash. What does Cash do for a living?
Cash is a carpenter.
Well, I'll be damned.
Isn't that a thing? Isn't that a thing? This is the beauty of talking about literature.
But, do you know the miracle of the multitude?
Lay it on me.
The feeding of the 5,000, have you heard of that? The feeding of the 4,000, a separate miracle. In the miracle of the 5,000, Jesus fed the masses with a few loaves of bread and a couple fish. There is a brother who threatened to feed the entire family here with a single fish. To feed the entire unwashed of the Bundren estate with a single fish. Mm-hmm. Which brother was that?
That was Vardaman.
Well, I'll be damned.
Isn't that a thing?
I'll be damned.
Isn't that a thing? There was, and like I am stretching here to remember this, when we first started reading, like week 1 of this, there is some symbolism of the three brothers, Darl, Cash, and Jewel, delivering, it would be Addie Bundren's corpse to this promised land. I mean, it's a three wise men-esque deliverance here, where each one of them is bringing...
They're taking Mother Mary back to from whence she came.
And each one's bringing the gift that they hold dear to them. Cash has his tools. Jewel has his horse. There was some symbolism, and like I remember thinking of it there, I'm like, nah, you're stretching. Just put it in the back burner. But like, I don't know, man. There's so much with this novel. Yeah, there's so much to find.
So that's why I said what I said with, once you start picking at this, you're not sure which thread to follow.
True, very true.
Right? So each of these brothers has a bit of Christ in him.
Okay.
Doesn't he?
All right.
That's not on accident. With a writer the ilk of Faulkner, you cannot believe that was on accident.
Okay.
So if all of these brothers have a touch of Christ, what does that say about Ants?
Ants is the one who betrayed. Like, if you have the Christ, like the Christian faith here, you have to have the betrayal, which would be Ants wholeheartedly.
But literally in the text, he would be Joseph.
Okay.
Right?
Well, yeah. The father.
So what this is saying is that Joseph was all right with his wife screwing around, or he never knew about it.
Okay. Which would be a major argument against religion.
It would.
It would.
It is also to say that, boy, if old Joseph had one pulled over on him, and it was not the child of God, as Mary had suggested, but it was just a child of the guy down the street, what is religion? It's an empty bag.
It's a ruse.
Yeah. So there's so much going, and that's not even, like you said earlier, not even touching on the river.
Yes.
Crossing the river. Not even touching on my mother is a fish. Not even touching on the man of God. Not even touching on the fire, right? We don't have to touch on any of those things to draw so many, like a salve poured on this text. We're just drawing so much out.
Yes. We've talked a lot
simply from reading it
the last couple weeks that there is just so much happening with this. It's really, and we've discussed this, we're trying to keep this in the 30-minute review segment, but we could go for days on this. Like anything you wanted to pick apart on this is just gold.
Right.
Just absolute gold. I do think Darl is still very interesting, and I can't pinpoint what is going on with him. There is something odd, something bizarre about Darl, and something finally snaps within him that causes him to basically attempt to murder his entire family. And to...
They weren't in the barn.
Addie Bundren was in the barn. Right. It's like a cleansing by fire almost.
Yeah, trying to get rid of the problem.
Yes.
Right.
So is Darl...
Or did Addie tell him to do this?
I
right?
don't know.
So in the last part 3 of the read-along, we talked a little bit about the scene where Darl is gesturing Vardaman over, listen to the casket. Mm-hmm. And she's in there whispering. Well, I have to believe that what's going on there, since Vardaman hears it as well, is not that she's a zombie, but is the fact that she is bloated and releasing gases.
This is true, but Vardaman, again, is a very unreliable, impressionable character. You don't know if it's maybe his youth, because you tell a kid something, listen quietly, you can hear this, they'll hear it.
Yeah.
They want to hear it. So there could be a lot going on with that.
Exactly, and we're never tipped one way or another.
And I'm still not sure about the character of Vardaman. I'm not sure how to. I want to play that character and read that character.
Well, so you mentioned that you thought he might be mentally disabled but older.
Possibly.
I don't think that is the case, because as I was going back and looking, we get, I think, from Toll the quote, "That fish was nigh as big as he."
Okay.
Now, unless it is that big a fish,
Big fish.
that it's is as big as a grown man.
Okay.
It's more believable probably that
Okay.
one of those country fish were as big as a 5-year-old.
All right, that's fair.
You know.
That's fair. We'll put that one on the back burner then. Where would you like to go with this next? Because I feel like you have so much you want to say, and I want to let you fit this in.
Well, I if need be, I'll create an appendage video. What do you have?
I want to talk a little bit about the unreliableness of every character here. We've mentioned that before, and that's one thing I wanted to focus on here. Every single character in this is unreliable in some sense. But because we are given this stream of conscious style of writing, you have to take almost verbatim what they're saying, because you are getting the actual quote. You are getting the mental thoughts behind these characters. The character is unreliable in themselves, yes. But this is what the character truly believes.
Right, you have to go off consequences to try and figure out what actually happened.
Yes, and I think that is a gorgeous thing here, because when you look at people are unreliable, absolutely. But a lot of people don't realize they're unreliable. They wholeheartedly believe this.
Or they've talked themselves into it, like ants.
Like ants. And this is part of maybe the uneducated Southerners, that is stereotype of this style of literature.
Well, Faulkner's not invoking stereotype. He's trying to give you something. You know what I'm saying? I don't think... when you talk about invoking a stereotype, you're talking about someone trying to poorly display another person. All of the characters in this text are noble in their own way.
They are.
So, I would shy away from invoking from accusing Faulkner of invoking a stereotype.
I'm just saying with this Southern literature thing, and it's a pride thing. It is. If I believe this because it's true. Damn it.
And I'll talk you into it if I have to.
And that's the way I will fight tooth and nail to let you know that this is the way it is. These characters believe in what they're doing. These characters know that they're right. But when placed together in the grand scheme of things, we can see they're all wrong. Honestly, the only character that is reliable in this is Cash. And Cash is such a finite person, a mechanical person, that you lose the majority of what he's trying to get at by him saying just this.
Well, and you also get a little bit into the toxic masculinity with Cash, don't you?
Okay.
We had to put Darrell away. It was what was best for him.
What was best for him?
Why was it what was best for him? Because you decided so, right? So we get a little bit into those arguments with Cash as well. He is such that character. Anything else you'd like to raise?
Go on. Your shot. Take a swing at
Well,
something.
one thing that I am toying with this text, the idea of the natural versus the synthetic. Okay. The idea of from nature and from man. Who is the favored child here?
Jewel.
Jewel is... What is a jewel?
It's
Natural made, right?
natural made, yes.
They occur in nature. Who is the child which is not necessarily unfavored by Addie, but who serves the purpose, is a tool?
Cash.
Cash. Cash is a man-made thing, right? Cash is an idea of civilization. So even in Cash's, the labor of Cash's love, the casket of Addie Bundren, he cannot save her from the elements. He cannot save her from the river. Cash, ultimately, fails.
Okay.
Cash, ultimately, loses his, not entirely his ability to work, but he's not getting around like he used to, is he?
Correct.
Cash, when we stop at these little places along the way, Cash is the one who's respected.
Okay.
Cash is the one that we stop here and, oh, Cash, I got you with this because remember you hooked me up with
hardworking
X, Y, and Z. Yeah. But Cash is disposable in this text.
Okay.
So who are the favored people in this text? They are the country folk, right? They are the dependable ones. They are the trustworthy ones. They are the good, hardworking people. Where do they live? In the country, right?
Okay.
Versus in the city.
Don't trust the city folk.
The city folk are the people we don't trust.
Okay.
Remember they see the one car and everyone kind of freaks out a little bit?
I think it's interesting when you talk about trust and characters here. Darrell, the entire time from the beginning, has always been put as he's off, he's odd, he's different. But Darrell is never really spoken of in a negative light.
people seem a little bit afraid of him.
But he's just strange. I mean, there's something off about him. He's a little strange, but it's never pinpointed. It's not like he's a bad guy. He's just different. But when you look at like a baseline reading of this, Daryl's almost the villain here. Daryl sets the fire to the barn. Daryl's the one who ends up in the asylum. So even at that level there, the character that you are led to believe is innocent, is just the dreamer, is just strange. That's your bad one.
Yeah, see, I don't know if...
Whereas with Cash, you get this cold, mechanical man. He's not a warm character. He's not somebody that you're going to, be like really attach yourself to emotionally, as opposed to Daryl, who is very easy to form an emotional attachment with because he is a dreamer. It's almost a complete flip there. Because Cash is really the one doing what is needing to be done. He's doing things right, best he can. Whereas Daryl, who we do form that emotional attachment with, we're immediately shattered when he tries to burn everything down. I love it how he takes notes like he's got more, like he secretly is writing something somewhere else.
Well, I'm not listening to you. I'm running through the text, and I came up with another point.
That's fair. What point did you come up with?
We talked a little bit earlier. We talked a little bit earlier about religion.
Yes.
And religious practices.
Okay.
We didn't talk about religious practices. We talked about the religion itself, the Christ figure.
Yes.
But with religious practices, did you catch on to how Addie Bundern is buried?
How she's buried?
How she's placed in her casket.
I know. Not off the top of my head.
She's placed in her casket upside down.
Okay.
She's placed in her casket with her head where the feet go and her feet where the head go because she was buried in her wedding dress.
Okay.
So she will forever be ill at ease.
Okay.
In this, maybe she is talking in that casket. Maybe she is telling Daryl to burn this place down. Maybe she is whispering to Daryl this entire time. Nothing has pushed Daryl over the edge yet. Over half of this book, I believe, we are in Daryl's head, right?
Yes.
We never get him like he is in that final chapter, do we?
Okay.
We never get him as we get him in his final chapter in this text.
We talk about, again, this is a Southern Gothic almost, I would say. Agree with that? In the Southern tradition, especially at this point in time, there is a respect for the dead. There comes up to the notion of sitting up with the dead. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay, before the burial process, it is very much a tradition, especially in the South, that the family sits up with the dead.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Before they're buried, you sit and you basically sit vigil with them. This is what's happening with this. This family refuses to leave Addie's side, especially Anne's, ironically enough, because they are sitting up with the dead. But in the other side of things here, if she's buried upside down, we're already desecrating the dead. If she's rotting in there because we're still moving her this way, Addie's not having a good burial.
And one of the things that is interesting to me is the gender difference in these characters who observe them along the way.
Okay.
The men who see them all mention the smell, and they all you see them shaking their head at Anne's.
Yeah. Well, it's not the way it should be done.
The women ask, how are they doing that to her? How can they do that to her? How can they put her through this, right? So it is like, not that it necessarily says anything. It is just, I think, so women in this world had post-feminist revolution. It is hard to say, well, a woman's place in her kitchen is a noble thing, right?
Okay.
But in this world, boy, that had to happen, didn't it?
Okay.
Because no one's stopping at McDonald's on the way home.
True.
So these are not ornamental women, but they are women without necessarily the place to make decisions.
Okay.
So the dichotomy there is the women are worrying about Addie. How are they doing this to her? And they say something to the men. And everyone, right? How are they doing this to her? You ought to say something.
Okay.
Bring them into dinner and say something. And the men all say, what am I going to say? What, are they going to bury her in the backyard?
True. Very
They've
true.
got to get her to Jefferson now. You know, they've got to get her somewhere, right? So along that, we split every character in this text between Cora and Cash.
Okay.
So every character we meet along the way is divided between those two, aren't they? In a weird little speech pattern way. The things they say and the way they say them. Which is something I don't even have in my notes.
Don't you love you just kind of go off every now and then? I have a feeling that you are probably going to have a supplementary video to this.
Possibly.
Because I think you are in a half of your 3 to 6 page notes.
Yeah, this is bad.
Well, there's so much to say. There really is. But let's wrap this up here.
One more point.
One more.
Let me pick one. Whose text is this?
Whose text is this?
Yeah, whose book is this? Who owns this book?
Again, this is this is the family. There's not one
Even
highlighted character.
Even then, most books have an owner. Most books you look at and you think, well, this is that person's
You
text.
would want to say Darl. Darl has the most text.
Yeah, Darl's, I haven't counted, but he's doing most of these chapters. He's doing
Yes.
most of the heavy lifting here. We're in his head most of the time.
But on the other hand, Addie is a prominent figure in this, a prominent character who is in...
The novel's about
It's about her. She has one chapter.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. It is.
But if we're saying this entire thing is about Addie, how is it not about ants?
It's fair. Ants is put on the back burner so much, so that twist in the end, man, that's what really gets you. That changes this novel. It does.
Who owns the last chapter?
Who owns the last chapter?
Who tells us the last bit?
Is it Jewel? Off the top of my head? It's Cash.
It is Cash.
And that's probably the most we get from Cash. Interesting. Very interesting.
Who changes the most?
Who changes the most
Yeah.
throughout this? I'd say Jewel.
I'd say Jewel as well.
Absolutely.
Who has the longest lasting, most profound effects from this text?
Darl or Vardaman?
I'd say Dewey Dell.
Okay, I didn't think about Dewey Dell. Good
Dewey
point.
Dell has lost her virginity.
Point.
She has been raped, and she's still having a child.
Okay. Everybody gotta suffer. Everybody's gotta suffer. Adrian, let's wrap this up here. We're getting close to our time limit
Yeah.
here. What would you rate As I Lay Dying?
I would give this 98 goddamn yous out of 100.
98? Okay, I gave it 95 dead mothers.
Okay.
So we are right up there. And I will say, if memory serves me, the highest rating we've ever had on this channel was Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. And I think we did 95, 96.
I think I did 96, yeah.
So this would be the highest rated book we've
just
tackled.
so good.
It is good. What would you recommend?
If you enjoy this type, God, we're going so close to time. Now is the Hour by Tom Spanbauer because of the first-person narrative, the uniqueness of the text. It's a family text. It's a coming of age, all sorts of things.
I didn't have a good choice, so I just kind of have a slew here of what I feel like I would like to read next. This style, this Southern Gothic, this suffering of the family, Grapes of Wrath, absolutely. I would like to read The Sound and the Fury, also by Faulkner. I know that's a major one, maybe Absalom as well. And finally, Stream of Conscious Writing, I'd like to tackle James Joyce. Okay. I put it in there.
So you're only suggesting things you've never read.
Yes, these are like what I would read next, feeling like if I'm going from this to that.
Okay.
Wrap me up here.
That's all we've got. There might be more videos in the suite, the playlist for As I Lay Dying. I hope to see you next time.
As we proved before, we're fucking professionals at hitting right at the second. Apparently I'm not. All right.
So I got a little skit as we come back. So
Skid away. Which actually makes sense because it actually brings up a grid so you can kind of frame your shot. Now that we've learned this.
yeah, 3 years in. Good.
Yes.